If we can approach dry January with a lightness, with a curiosity, with an inquisitiveness, I think we have a much better opportunity to actually learn something that's going to help us with whatever next step we take in February.
Why does the world act like alcohol is the answer, even while it is creating problems of its own?
On the Alcohol Myth podcast, we pull back the curtain so you can see what's really going on with alcohol and what life could be like without it.
We are coaches trained in This Naked Mind and effective liminal psychology who fell for the alcohol myth for decades. Now we help people take back control of their lives by changing their relationship with alcohol from the inside out.
You don't need to wait for a rock bottom. You don't need more willpower. You just need a new way to understand what you are feeling and why you are reaching for that next drink.
So let's dig in. Hey, Ellen, how are you today?
I'm great, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Today we are talking about, and this is a very exciting time. We're in the lead up to January, and January is one of my favorite seasons because it's dry January season. And so a lot of people are taking this opportunity to start fresh in 2026 by re-examining, or maybe it's even just examining for the first time, their relationship with alcohol by just taking a step back for the month of January. So, did you ever do a dry January?
Oh, I tried and failed many dry Januaries. Yeah, more than I can count, really. I would do them with my husband, and then a couple days in, I'd be giving up, and he'd be still plugging along, and I would start sneaking my booze. And so, dry January was not, although my first dry January was after I started to learn some of this material. That is true. Like, I was not what it wasn't day one, January 1st, but I had my first dry Thanksgiving, which led to a little more drinking in December, and then a dry January. I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a go. And it wasn't a whole full 30 days either. I'll be 31 days. I'll be 100% honest, but it was more dry days that month of January than I had had in any prior January. So I'd
Mhm.
like to just throw that out there too. Dry January does not have to be an all or nothing situation. It can be like, let's throw everything at this and learn and reiterate as we go and not give up on day three because we had a drink and just throw up our hands and be like, I'm not going to do it till next year, which is what I used to do all the time. We don't have to do that, everybody.
Yeah.
How about you?
Oh my goodness, like a damp January, right? Like,
Mm, yeah.
yeah, why not, right? Because a win is a win. And if the win is kind of pulling back a little bit from alcohol habit that has been, on full tilt, and it's less on full tilt in January, boom, that's progress. That's a win. Celebrate that. For me, I think dry January kept me hung up a little bit in my drinking career because I would do dry January and use that as proof or evidence that I didn't actually have a quote problem, or like, a capital P problem. I mean, I'm not an alcoholic, so because I was able to do dry January, so that means that I can go full tilt in February, right? Like, so I don't know, dry January, I think is a wonderful time and a wonderful season to um, reflect and like set your goal for the year. Like there's a lot of energy and there's a lot of positivity behind it. But at the end of the day, it really means what you let it mean. And so for me, when I was kind of drinking a lot more than I wanted to, but also not wanting to deal with the fact that I was drinking more than I wanted to, I used it as an excuse to keep doing what I subconsciously wanted to keep doing, which was drinking and, kind of numbing over everything um that I was feeling and avoiding and dealing with. So
Yeah.
that was dry January for me for years, but um I mean it does take deciding to get some days under your belt to start making some progress and to get the clarity that you need to start resetting your relationship with alcohol. And so a lot of people find that in January. I've got clients that started off because of a dry January challenge and then it just kept it rolling into February. And then they started to find that it was a struggle, and then they reached out for help. So,
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you and I described ways that dry January maybe is not the best way to look at it, like this all or nothing thinking that I went into where I didn't succeed. So it was just like throw up my hands and quit. Or you proving to yourself you're not an alcoholic by being able to do it, which by the way, you're not an alcoholic. We don't have to use those words, but
mm-mm.
those are our fears when we're doing a dry January quite often. So it can be scary. And I can remember not refusing to even think about a dry January because I knew I'd fail. I didn't want to commit to something I couldn't do. And so, how can we think about a dry January in a way that is going to actually serve the goal of improving our relationship with alcohol? Because one of the really nice things about participating in some sort of a dry January is that it's very widely recognized and
Mhm.
accepted as a reason not to drink. So, if one of your concerns is what will people think if I don't drink, or how will my relationships be, or what will I say, or if I say I'm not drinking, people might make judgments about me. It is very socially acceptable now to just be like, hey, I'm doing a dry January. And it's just like, you don't have to explain anything. You don't have to say, I'm never drinking again. You might not even want to say, that might not be your goal. But it's a very socially acceptable reason to experiment, particularly if you take on that mindset of this is an experiment. I want to, with curiosity, with an open mind, an open heart, with a not knowing brain, like I really don't know how I'm going to feel not drinking for the month of January. And I really want to find out versus I know I have to do this because I feel terrible and I need to feel better and all of that kind of real negative, heavy energy. Like if we can approach dry January with a lightness, with a curiosity, with an inquisitiveness, I think we have a much better opportunity to actually learn something that's going to help us with whatever next step we take in February.
Yeah, exactly what you said is like, how do I approach dry January in such a way that it's successful and not like my previous attempts or your previous attempts? How do I win a dry January? And I think that to synthesize what you said there was to be kind to yourself as you go into it, hold on to what you're trying to do loosely, and be I don't know, uproariously curious about your experience. Like go into it, and when you start to have a wobble and you start to think, "Ooh, I could really go for a drink right now, but I'm on dry January, right?" Pay attention to that conflict because it's there to teach you something. That inner dialogue where you've got one side of you that's wanting to find the comfort in the place that it's historically been found, which is like in the bottle, is reaching out for something at that time for some reason. And so trying to figure out what is that reason can be extraordinarily enlightening. And then equal measure, that other voice that's like, no, we committed to this. We're trying to build something different. We're trying to change this. Pay attention to that voice too and see what it has to teach you. And going into the whole dry January experience with that lightness and curiosity, that's the recipe for having a successful dry January. Whether it's technically 31 days with no alcohol or not, the win is that capacity to be curious to your experience and to also hold yourself gently.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about in This Naked Mind and with affective luminal psychology around, that sounded funny, psychology, around emotion-based goals versus behavior-based goals, right? So a behavior goal around dry January would be I'm going to remain entirely alcohol-free for 31 days, the 31 days in January. And that there's nothing wrong with having that as a North Star as of course, there's a reason why we're doing this, but that alone is really like, yeah, to your point, it just feels hard. It feels like there is a win-lose. There's a either I do it or I don't. It feels incredibly rigid. It feels incredibly punishing. It
Mm.
feels like for me, there's not a lot of motivation. Like, what is the motivation behind that? It's like, oh, to prove I can do it, or like that, and that runs out, that motivation. Or maybe it's a fear-based motivation that's like, I need to do this, or else it means I'm an alcoholic. And that fear-based energy also runs out. And so when those kinds of energies dissipate, we're left with, willpower, which also is only going to last so long. So the idea of going into it was like, gosh, what can I learn about my relationship with alcohol in these 31 days that's going to set me up to do the work I need to do to be able to look at alcohol differently so that I don't even want it anymore.
Hmm. I think the thing too, like when you're in that kind of questioning mind and you're being genuinely curious about what's triggering you to want to drink or what are you trying to escape from, there's so much depth of self that kind of comes to light as you are observing yourself going through this process. So you're going to learn so much about yourself. Like, oh my goodness, my work is really, really, really stressing me out a lot, and it's a major trigger for me. Do I need to look at how I show up at work and how I let work affect me in order to be successful down the line with my relationship with alcohol? Or maybe it's like, oh, I'm reaching for a bottle every time I feel this like pang of loneliness or disconnection. If you keep reaching for a bottle and then that keeps you isolated and small and in your house, then that is not solving for the root cause of the trigger that alcohol is, kind of helping you deal with. And so there's so much more to your life and your lived experience that you're going to discover when you start to again hold yourself with that gentleness and approach yourself with some curiosity.
Yeah, and I mean, to what you're saying too, like what are we when we're reaching for the drink, what is the emotion we're trying to get? Like when we think about an emotion-based goal, like if you're reaching for a drink because you're lonely, the emotion you probably want to feel is connection, love, some sort of, what's the opposite of lonely? I'm drawing a blank here. Connection, right? Like to feel connected to something, someone, to feel loved, to feel not alone, to feel with, right? And so alcohol promises that, and it fails miserably, but it has a really good story, and it has a really fast hit that can confuse us and make us think that it's actually doing the thing. But when we can get in touch with, wow, what am I really wanting to feel by giving up alcohol? Is it feeling, do I want to feel more peace in my life? Do I want to feel more connection with the people I love? Do I want to feel calmer? Like, do I want my anxiety to reduce? Do I want to feel, I don't know. Like, what was your emotion based goal, Jonathan, when you started this? I'm curious how you read into that.
Well, my emotion-based goal as it relates to alcohol was to feel in control and confident and sure of myself. But in doing the work, I discovered that what alcohol was really doing for me was covering over a lot of anxiety and a deep-seated fear that who I was, who I am, wouldn't measure up to other people's standards or like wouldn't be good enough. And so I was constantly twisting myself into knots, trying to be what I thought everybody else needed me to be, whether that was the, ultra high performer at school or in work or the, perfect, never do anything wrong husband and partner. And it just, I was constantly stressed out trying to meet other people's expectations that I had created in my head, right? It's not like they were coming to me and saying, listen, I need you to be exactly this. And I'm like, I got it, right? It's this story that, well, here I am. Here's what they need me to be. that gap is causing a lot of stress, and into that, I'm gonna pour a bunch of alcohol so I can feel like I can keep going. So in this work, I have found I've just had the joyous realization that who I am is good enough, and I'm perfectly lovable and deserving and worthy as I am. And I don't think that I could have had that realization without getting some distance from alcohol and without having had the experience of watching myself go through breaking up with alcohol. So totally worth
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's so powerful, and it's so, I think it's such a relatable experience too. Mine was somewhat similar, how the initial emotion-based goal that we reach for is what is top of mind, or like what we can see at the place that we're at, right? Like my emotion-based goal in the beginning was I wanted to feel free from the shackles of alcohol, right? I wanted to be able to not feel like I was thinking about it all the time, like I was drinking, not drinking. I just felt consumed by it. I wanted to feel free from the thoughts, from the fear, from the anxiety, anything to do from alcohol. So Anna Grace, she talks about the wanting to be, have it be completely small and irrelevant in her life. And that made a huge amount of sense to me. And I think what's underneath that, like you're saying, is it's quite often it's like, well, why was it so necessary in my life? And I also was wearing all the masks for all the people. It was like, let me look at this person and decide who I think I need to be to be accepted, to get belonging, to feel love, to feel validation. And I put on that mask and I wore it. And then I looked at the next person over here and I did the same thing. And I was constantly like, switching up my masks, and I had completely lost touch with who I was. And I mean, more and more people that I talk to through this journey, it's so often the case.
Mhm.
And it comes from this that you so vulnerably brought up, this place of not feeling enough, like that we can just be who we are and have that just be enough. And I think, God, what a beautiful thing to discover after having gone through this experience, that like I don't need to contort myself to feel belonging, to feel love, to feel acceptance, to feel connected with the people that I love. Whereas, I was in that belief, and alcohol kept me stuck in that belief because it never allowed me to go any deeper. I was so busy scrambling, trying to figure out how to stop drinking, that I couldn't do any of the work that allowed me to start that process of self love, self acceptance, recognizing that I have everything I need within.
Yeah, I
Like
think that you mentioning the noise of being in a situation where you're drinking more than you want to is one of my absolute favorite things from dropping booze, is just how much mental clarity there is. I used to be doing constant booze math about like, well, how much do I have at the house? And is it going to be enough? And if I drink tonight, am I going to drink too much? Or I've got that meeting later. I've got to make sure that I have just enough to get by, but not enough to where it makes an impact. And then I've also got to, and where am I going to get the next? And like, which way is the store? And am I going to pick up it was so busy and so overwhelming. And the clarity and peace and calm that's on the other side of that is worth its weight in gold. If that was the only thing that I got from dropping booze, it would be enough. But that's just that's just the appetizer, right? Like, the really good stuff is that realization, like, oh wait, I am enough.
And I think it's so cool that in an experience like Dry January, we have an opportunity to quiet that noise, like if
Mm.
even just for a little bit. Because what happens when we take it entirely off the table, if your goal is to go for it, Dry January, I'm not going to drink, whether or not you succeed or not, like let's not even, but like let's just say we're not drinking. We're not drinking tonight. We're not drinking this week. We're not drinking for the next 2 weeks. We're not drinking for the whole month. Whatever your goal is that you set for yourself, it allows the noises to quiet down, because it's like instead of thinking about how much can I have? When can I start? Da, da, da. There's, there's, there is the question, can I do it? Of course that's going to be there. And that's something that we can, talk about at some point because it's to trust ourselves that we're going to be okay if we do it. But when we get into that duck mode, we'll call it duck mode, which is basically like the voices that come at you like, can we do it? Are we going to do it? How much are we going to have? And we just let it slide off our backs like a duck and be like, I made a decision with a capital D. I'm not drinking tonight. Then we don't get like swooped into that circular conversation that you're describing. We can free up some of that mental space and then can see what shows up, in the space that opens up.
Yeah, 100%. So, Ellen, we like to make things super, super practical on the Alcohol Myth podcast. So, key advice that you would give to somebody who is considering taking on dry January, what key advice would you have for them to have that experience be successful?
The first thing that comes to mind for me is have a why. Why are you doing this? And like write it down. Like write it down either in your notes app on your phone, write it down in a journal. If you're afraid of somebody finding it, you can even write it down and burn it. But get really clear about why you want to do this, because and have that why be tied to some emotion. You
Mm.
know, it there's nothing wrong with having a, I want to lose 5 pounds goal or whatever the fitness is, but my recommendation would be to have it be tied to emotion. Like, how do you want to feel? Do you want to feel proud of yourself? Do you want to feel more rested? Do you want to feel calmer? Do you want to feel, I don't know, like more present with your life versus scrambling in your head all the time? Like, try and come up with some reasons that kind of tug at your heartstrings here, because the why can be the thing that we tap into in the moment of craving when we're deciding whether or not we're going to have the drink. So if you have a really clear why, write it down, get some clarity on it, and then I guess, well, let me let you go because I have a couple ideas, but I want to make sure we have time to talk about everything. So
I would say that ahead of dry January, if possible, or as you're going into it, for the period that you're still drinking like you normally drink, practice having some curiosity for yourself by making the drinks that you're having very mindful. So still have your normal thing, still like, you haven't hit your start date or whatever. And as you have that drink, ask yourself, how is this really making me feel right now? Notice the sensations in your body. You'll notice that, the relief of taking that first drink or pouring yourself the first drink happens before you even touch a glass to your lips because it's not the stuff itself, it's what it means to you that's so powerful. And then notice, watch yourself, watch your experience in your body, what happens when you drink the drink. That rush of, the head rush that you get. And then watch after like 10, 15 minutes what happens in your body and just practice being super curious about what's going on. And that capacity for we spend so much time tuning out the intelligence of our own bodies and ignoring what's going on, like the signals that our bodies are telling us. So it takes some time and some practice to tune back into that. But there's a lot to be learned there. And I think it's a really valuable thing to practice being curious with yourself ahead of your official start date, whether that's December 31st or January 10th or March 31st, whenever your start date is, growing in that capacity to be curious.
yeah, so key. And I want to say too, like, let's bring a little fun into this too. Like,
Mm,
it can feel like if we go into it thinking, restriction, deprivation. I got to power through. I just got to make it through. That feels, I mean, it just doesn't feel very motivating. But if we can think about it like, "God, what do I get to experience? And also, how can I reward myself? This is a big freaking deal that I'm doing here. If I'm used to drinking pretty regularly, in my case, every day, then to not drink for a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever it is that you commit to, it's a big deal. And so let's not wait till the end of the month to decide that whether or not we've succeeded or failed. Every day that is a sober pillow day that we don't drink is a success and is a reward, and we need to reward ourselves. We should have treats. We should, whether they be buying yourself some flowers because you did it, having a nice bath, doing, I mean, we're going to save some money not spending money on alcohol if we really are not spending money on alcohol for 31 days. Like, what can you do for yourself that is fun and feels good? And because we want this to feel good. This is supposed to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. And uh, oh, the alcohol-free drinks, like, use them. Like, have fun creating fun mocktails, fun, try different alcohol-free beers. Like, get your festivities on with something different, something other than alcohol, because there's something out there for every taste bud. There really is. And it can be a fun way to pass the time, even if all you I got really crazy into tea. I got all kinds of different herbal teas. I got a whole tea collection, and I had different kinds of, yeah, delicious herbal teas at night so that I wouldn't have the caffeine to keep me up. In addition to all the mocktail stuff I did, like, I got a little crazy, but it was helpful. It gave me something fun to think about and plan for and not feel deprivation.
Yeah, 100%. I think that not feeling deprivation is so important. And one of the things that this whole journey has taught me too, it makes sense, but it's super underappreciated. People only do the things that they feel like doing. You only do what you feel like doing. If you don't feel like tackling dry January because it seems like it's gonna suck and you like are just like doing that white knuckle heavy energy deprivation approach to it, you might not be successful. But if you feel like doing it because you've made it super fun, you're you've just exploded your chances of success in a positive way.
Yeah, 100%. And find people online, find people, to share the journey with. Like, it can feel lonely when we're trying to do this, and there are so many sober curious resources out there that will all be exploding around dry January to support you and to support everyone out there who is interested in renegotiating their relationship with alcohol and using the month of January to get that little start that sometimes can turn into, a snowball that just keeps on going. So, and it can maybe just be an experiment. It doesn't have to be the snowball that keeps on going, just being able to experience a few days and get to know what that feels like. It can spark the curiosity to try something else too.
That's one of the big things I think is like opening the door and letting it be curious and not putting a bunch of weight behind it. Like I think it's really freeing to realize that you can drink as much or as little as you want. And when you get to a point where you are taking care of yourself so well that you're not outsourcing taking care of yourself to a harmful and addictive substance, then you find that you don't really want to drink anymore. And that's a really beautiful place to be in. And for dry January, think about grabbing an accountability buddy, somebody that you can like confide in or like share your experience with. And if you don't have anybody in your life, email us, thealcoholmyth@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us be a resource for you in this month of dry January and anytime where, our whole mission here is to support people that are interested in having a different, healthier relationship with alcohol. So
Yeah,
reach out.
wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us. If any part of this resonated with you, we'd love for you to like and follow so you don't miss any future episodes. We're going to have a couple of more on the lead up to Dry January to help you navigate this. If this episode made you think of anybody that you'd like to pass this along to, we'd love for you to share it. And until next time, I've been Jonathan,
And this is Ellen.
and we look forward to talking to you next time. Thanks for listening to the Alcohol Myth Podcast.
If this episode sparked something for you, we'd love to hear about it.
Send your questions, stories, or ideas for future episodes to thealcoholmyth@gmail.com.
We read every message. We really do.
Take good care of yourself. I'll see you next time.